I'm right in the middle of it. It's balmy, absolutely balmy. Well, good evening all. I've come up the land this evening and I've got to do a bit of manipulation of a beehive, and it's a bit of an accidental beehive because the other day we had a swarm move into my big pile of supers that I've got stacked next to the railway carriage. It was about 4 days ago. I came up about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I noticed there was about, I don't know, 100 or 200 or so bees looking quite busy around this stack of supers. And I've seen this before. I saw it last year and it looked to me like there's some bees trying to find a new place to live. So I walked through the gate into my apiary just to check that the activity was normal with my bees, and it was all quite normal. So I came back, and that's when I put that polystyrene nuc on top, thinking if they're going to find somewhere to live, that'll be a good place. Not expecting the swarm to come that moment. Then all of a sudden I heard the roar of a swarm of bees. Couldn't quite figure out where it was. I was searching around, and it wasn't until I looked up that I could see all the bees, and the swarm was actually right above my head. I've took a bit of footage. Have a look at this. Well, this is something you don't see every day. See all the bees whizzing around my head. The sound's phenomenal. There's lots of bees collecting around the nuc that I've balanced on top of all those hives. Hopefully this is a swarm from elsewhere and it'll jump in that box. Hopefully it's not a swarm from one of my 4 colonies. So we are right in the middle of this swarm. If I pan around, there's bees all around me, 360 degrees. But they are concentrating now around the hives. Hopefully they choose to go into the poly nuc that's on top. But there's a lot of bees around the bottom. Well, you can see the bees, they're all starting to consolidate at the bottom of that stack of supers. So perhaps that's the area they've chosen. Don't know if you can see clearly, but they are all forming into a ball at the bottom of that stack of supers. I've just walked over to my hives and they all seem to be acting as they normally would. I don't know, I'll do an inspection later just to see if one of the queens has escaped. But there's definitely a swarm in process here. Well, I've just come back after 10 minutes and there's a lot less bees in the area. But what I am noticing is that the bees that are down at the bottom of this stack of supers, they're all fanning their wings. Now that's making me think that the queen of this swarm is already in these boxes. Well, I'm back up the farm and I've just come round to where the swarm of the bees had landed earlier just to see if there's much more activity, and it looks like they are actually using this as their hive now. There's bees coming in and out, even though it's really quite late. And one thing that's a real good sign is that they're carrying pollen into this stack of supers. I'm going to leave them tonight and probably another day just to make sure they get really settled, and then I'll get in there and drop that roof right down. Hopefully they're only going to be in the bottom 2 supers, maybe up into that brood box. But I've just done a full inspection of all 4 of my hives, and I have found the queen in 3 of them. The hive where I couldn't see the queen is still absolutely ram-packed full of bees. More bees now than when I last inspected just over a week ago, and there aren't any queen cells in there whatsoever. So I'm very confident that these new bees, or this swarm of bees, isn't from any of my colonies. Like I say, it's been 4 days since the bees moved into this stack of bee equipment, and they're using it very well indeed. Luckily for me, I've got a queen excluder on top of the brood box, which is the 3rd box up from the bottom. Obviously they are going in underneath through the pallet to get access. So what I've got to do, I need to take all this away, just see exactly what's going on, if I can find the queen, mark the queen. Right, so I've got my suit on, I'm feeling safe. I'll start deconstructing this tower of beehive equipment and just see exactly what they're doing in there, and then try and consolidate them into the brood box preferably. However, if I can't find the queen and it looks like she might be in one of the supers, then I'll let them be in there and try and sort them out at a later date. But at least I can get them into an actual hive sized piece of equipment with a roof on and a base, and we'll figure it out from there. And you can see the bees. Luckily we had the queen excluder on top, so I'm very sure that the queen will be just below this. See what we've got, see if we can find the queen at least. And then we'll know for sure whether it's definitely not from one of my colonies, if it's not a painted queen, or if it's a different colour. You can see there's some real manky frames on here, but they're packing that full of nectar. And there's a good number of bees on here. Lots of nectar. Lots of pollen, lots of nectar. And on this frame I can see eggs. So the queen's in here 100%, and there are a lot of eggs. And I can already see that there's larvae in all the different stages, and a good number of bees. I'm keeping my eye out to see if I can see the queen. Nothing so far. And this is all fresh comb that they've created themselves. As you can see, it's falling apart. There's no wire in this pit. That's incredible. That was just an empty frame, and that's all self-made comb. Bit too delicate. I'll put that back before it falls to pieces. They're just starting to draw that out, and I can't see a marked queen in here. Right, so I'll take this apart totally and I'll build it back up in the right fashion. So we'll have a base, the brood box, then we need the queen excluder. Now if by chance I have got the queen in one of these supers, I'll know by next week because there'll be eggs laid in these frames in the supers and not in the brood box. And then I'll be able to do something about it. I'll do another manipulation, but it looks quite positive that she's in the brood box already. So we'll put some supers back on top. Let it have 2 supers. Well, that sorted that out for this evening. I didn't see a queen, but I saw lots of eggs and larvae. They're packing it full of pollen and nectar, and there are quite a lot of bees in there. I've got them now restricted to the brood box, queen excluder on top of that, super, and then lid. And at least they have a proper base now, so they can enter and exit, and it's a smaller area for them to guard against any predators that might want to attack. And then what I've done is I've stacked all my remaining supers on top of this lid with a lid on top, so hopefully no more swarms will come into my supers, and I'm leaving the polynuc on top with the door open just in case there is another swarm that wants to come by. And hopefully it's going to be another really strong colony that's going to produce an absolute ton of honey for me. As you can see behind me, you can see the rape field all in flower at the minute, so there's absolutely tons of stuff for them to forage on round here. But it's not just the rape, even the trees, the field maple, they're starting to flower. This tree was absolutely buzzing today. You can see next to it with the white flowers, the hawthorn, everything's starting to come out. So these bees aren't going to struggle for the resources they need to pack those frames full of honey. Well, that's all I've got time for on this one. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.